Once again, hello everyone. You possibly, if you've been sitting around, heard my practice one, which shouldn't have been piped out live, but the TriCaster is a fickle beast, as you probably all know. So anyway, welcome to the lighting demonstration that Aaron, I and Joel are putting on. We'll mostly be talking about cameras, but we will go through the process of showing you how to light the scene you just saw. But first of all, we'll be talking about the cameras. We're going to be talking about 5 cameras today, 4 cameras today. And we'll be covering something very much aimed at first years, something for you guys to start producing something cinematic looking, working with the kit we have in the office. We've got the C100 for the second years to look at, which will allow you guys to sort of see where you're going from now moving into third year. And for you third years, we've got some kit that we've brought in. It's the sort of stuff we use when we're freelancing to show you the kind of rigs you can build, because these are what I would like to think of as attainable cinema rigs. Whilst they aren't, well, in some cases are, what's shooting high-end productions, they are the type of thing you could be producing small, cinematic, independent productions. And then, like I said, after we've covered all 4 of these cameras, we'll then go on to start talking about how we light our nice set here, this bird, some books and things, and just generally look at how you can bounce light around. I know you guys might feel like you've seen a lot of lighting demonstrations, but I think this one will be much more interesting because it's especially geared at cinematic lighting, not your interview lighting, very much lighting and looking at how we bounce that light around. So without further ado, I think Joel and Aaron are going to come on in, and I'll go back out and try and make the TriCaster work its magic, and we'll have a look at talking about the 90D. So let's have a little transfer over. Go on then. Okay, so pull those lights down. When you're ready, you want to introduce yourself? Yeah? Yeah, do it. Brilliant. Awesome.
All right, so here we go.
There we go.
The 90D should be connected up now.
Mm-hmm.
Give it a minute to...
Do you want to jump in front of the camera, Joel, so I can
Yeah, camera 2.
do a little intro? Yeah.
All set?
Yeah.
All right, so the first camera we're going to be looking at is the Canon 90D. This is a sort of perfect intermediate DSLR camera that first years will be using, and to be honest can still be used past that as well. So let me get behind the camera and sort of go through it a little bit. So the great thing about the Canon 90D is it's got 4K built into it, which is, to be honest, quite rare amongst some of the other cameras that we have in the tech office. It can also shoot 120 frames per second max in 1080p. Now the downsides to the 90D is that it doesn't have some of the sort of features that a higher end cinema camera like the C100 would have. So it's because at its core, it's a photography camera. But even then, this is going to give you some higher quality video compared to some of the other DSLRs in the kit hire, such as the 700Ds, 750Ds, that sort of thing. It's got an EFS mount, so all of the lenses in the tech office work, which is ideal. Even some of the cheaper lenses, you'll still get some really good sort of looks on the lens, on the camera. It can also be mounted to a gimbal as well. So if you're doing sort of slow-mo shots or any like product photography, like videography, that sort of thing, sticking it on a gimbal, you get some really nice shots with that. And our sort of heavier cameras like the C100, you'll really struggle to mount on the gimbals. You don't have C-Log, so flat images, like your flat image profile, so it's a bit harder to color grade, and you're only getting 8-bit footage out of the 90D, but even then, the colors straight out of the camera are very nice to work with and don't need too much tweaking. Yeah, overall, you know, it's not the most convenient camera to use for filming, but it's going to be one of the best ones you can use. So in first year, definitely get your hands on this one compared to like some of the lower end ones, maybe for your sort of starting projects. All right, that pretty much covers the 90D. If you think anything else, Aaron, to mention? Awesome. All right.
Is that not coming through? It's plugged in. Can't even see anything. No, we're not getting anything through. For some reason.
Very odd.
It's on.
Yeah,
It's
it's on
fine.
video.
Shall we skip to the C100?
I think let's plug it into the C100,
Yeah.
and if we can, get some close-ups of the screen with camera 2. I'll set that up so people can have a rough idea of what it looks like. There you go. So that's another drawback to the 90D is the small screen on it compared to some of our other cameras. But even just looking at the screen through camera 2 here, the quality of it is really incredible, and which is only exaggerated by the use of the 100mm macro on there as well, which is an L lens, so one of the better lenses. Yeah, that's all right.
Okay.
Is that all?
Oh, it works now. There we go.
Beautiful.
So you should be getting the C100 now, Lawrence.
All right, should we move on to the C100?
Yeah.
Excellent. Do you want me to pop my head in and do a little demonstration?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so this is the C100, which is closer to what you'll be using second and third year. It is the camera that you'll have to have a demonstration on beforehand to know that you're like actually capable of using it. This is my personal C100, so this monitor here is something we don't have in the tech office. However, we have some older equivalent versions. It is an Atomos Ninja, and what that allows is not only for a bigger, better monitor to view your footage on, but it also records externally into higher bitrate files. So internally on the C100, we have 8-bit, and you can get 10-bit 422 externally. The nice thing about the C100 is it is built for cinema, not photos. So you have inbuilt ND filters, which if we actually cut to this camera, you can see me flick throughing. So, which basically, if you don't know about ND filters, it basically works as sunglasses for your camera. So here we go, let me go through this again. And if you don't have inbuilt NDs, then it's the kind of thing you need to strap onto the front of the lens as a filter itself. The C100 does 1080p max, but it's from a 4K sensor that's being downsized. So you basically get a better 1080p image than you would from some of the other DSLRs. You can do a max of 30 frames per second, which isn't ideal. You will get better frame rates on the 90D, but most of the time you'll be shooting at 24, 25 frames per second, so works all right. There's a bunch of other different benefits to the C100, such as it's better in low light than some of the older cameras. You've got a native ISO of 850. You've got audio inputs up here built into the handle, which is great for if you're doing run and gun documentary style stuff. So if you plug your XLR leads into here, then you can get great audio straight into the camera versus a lot less on one of the 90Ds that only has a 3.5mm jack. Again, this is a Super 35mm sensor, so it will basically have a 1.4 times crop factor, which is a little bit bigger than the APS-C sensor that is in the 90D, which is a 1.6. But yeah, I think that for the most part covers the C100. Anything else, Aaron?
No, I'll leave you to that.
Brilliant.
Right. Did we get some good feeds of the shot there, Lawrence? Okay, I'll jump on. My mic, yeah. Oh, I didn't realise my mic was out. Sorry, guys. There we go. Hello, can you hear me? Testing mic check 1 2. No. It is. Just luck. Sorry, guys. Mic 5, testing mic check 1 2 1 2. No, I'm not picking up now, am I? John, can we swap mics?
Absolutely.
Sorry. Hello, testing mic check 1 2. You should be able to hear me now, guys. I'm just changing the battery quickly on my my Blackmagic, so 2 seconds, bear with. There we go, brilliant. So we should be able to see something now. I feel like this camera's probably a bit too close. I've got not a lot of space to work with, but there we go. So that is the image from the Blackmagic. I think that's live. I'm going to go and do a little wave just in front of it. Fantastic. So what we have here is the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera at 4K on a 35mm Sirui anamorphic lens. Which is why you're getting this kind of nice little flare going on. At the moment it's set to 4K DCI, and I kind of want to go through some of the resolutions that come with this camera and some of the FPS that we get and some of the nice features that come with this. So what I'll do is if we could maybe get a shot of the menu of the camera, please, guys. And hopefully, yeah, thank you for that, Joel, perfect. So I'm going to jump in and hopefully we can see that. There we go. I know the battery's a little bit in the way here, but as you can see here, I've got my 4K DCI, I've got my 4K 241, I've got Ultra HD, which is 3840 by 2160. I've got although I've got an anamorphic lens on, the 2.8K anamorphic setting just down there isn't exactly what I want to do because the anamorphic will squeeze and de-squeeze because it's a stretched image. So actually I avoid that and I tend to de-squeeze it through the extra settings just here. As you can see there, it just says 1.3 anamorphic de-squeeze on the monitoring. I've also got a Shinobi which also de-squeezes my anamorphic. So I'm going to jump back into my record settings, and then I want to talk about the formats that we have on the Blackmagic as well. I know there's not a lot of light on me at the moment, but the formats on the Blackmagic are the Blackmagic RAW. RAW is a high data file. You'll get insane amounts of storage taken up by Blackmagic RAW, but at the same time it gives you more flexibility in the edit, because that way you can bring things back, bring highlights back, or reduce them depending on what you're doing. So you can actually change the ISO in post, which is fantastic. And for color grading, it's for something a little bit more serious, because you can end up with a lot flatter image. So what I'll do as well, I'll jump into the FPS settings here. So if Joel, if you want to zoom in for me quickly. Fantastic. So what I've got here is 24 FPS set, which is the cinema kind of standard that I'm going for. But at the same time, I can do offset recording of FPS. So if I turn that on, I can do 60 FPS slow motion in 4K DCI in Blackmagic RAW, which is absolutely insane for something so small. And part of the reason why the Blackmagic 4K has got a great reputation and still holds up today, even though it was released in 2018. Alongside the 60 FPS on 4K DCI, I can get much higher frame rates if I jump down a res, but this will affect the squeezing. It's not too bad there on the 2K. So what I've done is I've gone down to 2.6K 16:9, and now, as you can see, it's cropped in a little bit. If I go back to the DCI, you can see the frame change slightly there. So I'm going to go back to that 2.6K and then go across to my frame rate. And what I can do is, I'll just move that wire out my way a little bit for you. I can set that to 120 FPS. There we go. So one of the beautiful features of this camera, now I've offset that, I can come out the menu and I can instantly hit to go into that slow motion 120 FPS. And as you can see, it does affect the exposure, and you can see the frame rate change in the top left as well. I'm going to come out of there because I prefer the 4K DCI, to be honest with you. So I'm going to go back there. Also, you can do LUTs on this camera, so I'll jump on the frame again. So if Lawrence, if you just give me a frame of the camera that we've got, thank you. I can turn off the LUT that I've got built into the camera. So I've got it turned off and on there. And that way it gives me an accurate measure of what it will look like once I've done something at home or done something in post. But at the same time, I can actually change that into something completely different if I really wanted to. I'd say this is a bit more of a standard kind of LUT at the moment. After that, I can also burn the LUT in if I really wanted to. So at the moment, this is just a preview. However, I can set it to burn the LUT on hard-coded so that it comes out the camera exactly like that, which is useful, or it could be a con. It depends on how you're working with the camera. So next, I want to talk about some of the extra kind of custom features of the camera. So if I pop this top left button here, if you zoom in on the frame again, what this is called false color. And to be honest with you, I didn't really know much about false color before this camera, and I didn't see the importance of it. But it's just an accurate reflection of exposure. So as you can see here, it's adjusting, and the green is obviously better, and the blue is better. So it gives you a quick reading of the exposure of the scene you're trying to do. Obviously, the bulb that we've got in the middle is red, but we kind of like that. And if I pull down the exposure, I lose maybe a little bit of bokeh. I mean, that's quite nice, and that's at, what are we at? That's at 2.8. So we lose a little bit of bokeh, but we gain a little bit maybe nicer tones in the shot. Next, I think, what else is worth talking about? We've got the frame assist. I'm not sure you'll see that, or you can just see that there, but that's the same as the other cameras, so the 90D, the C100. Most cameras these days come with focus assist, and then the other custom button is to turn off and on my LUT. I do have to say, this camera really has a great intuitive menu system. I'm able to just jump in, hit the ISO, hit the white balance, hit the shutter angle, and I can set it to what I like. And I can also just jump in this menu here and change what I need to. There's not much more else I want to talk about in terms of, let me just jump through. I can also upload my own LUTs and whatnot to really kind of customize the camera, and I am using a couple of filters with this camera as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take off the filters to show you the different shots. So Lawrence, if you could cut back to the scene for me. Thank you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that off for you. Okay, brilliant. I'll turn that off. Thank you. Okay, so we've got a polarizer on here, which is a circular polarizer, which should be getting rid of some reflections. So if you look at the Super 8 here, just at the bottom of the Super 8, and I turn my polarizer, it gets rid of that sheen, of that bounce of the light that's kind of coming off everything. If I turn it the wrong way, you see I get that back. Maybe you like that, maybe you don't. But I would say you get a much crisper image with the polarizer on there. And also the polarizer will remove a stop of light. So it's a little bit like an ND in a way, which is an added bonus if you ask me. So I'm just going to take these off now, so bear with a second. If Lawrence, you want to grab a screen grab of that, and then you can do a little changeover. Brilliant. So this is the polarizer just coming off, and it should overexpose. It should be a little bit overexposed once I get rid of it. Yeah, you see the difference there. So, and also it's just a bit of nastiness, if I'm honest. It's not as pleasing to the eye. And I'll just pop this down a second. And I'm just going to re-expose because I want to show you the difference the Pro Mist filter's making as well. So 1 second, just going to pump this down to 200 ISO. Is that a bit better? Yeah, we'll go for two. Maybe I'll drop that down to 100. Let's go there. Yeah, I'll change the framing slightly. There we go. We're back. So I'm going to take off the Tiffin Pro Mist filter. So the Tiffin Pro Mist have been around in Hollywood for about 30 years, and actually they were quite unique to Hollywood. They didn't really release them to the world until recently. So they come in different frames and different sizes. You've got 4x4, 4x5.65, and other different matte box attachments there. So what I'm going to do is just take this off. This is a 1/8 attachment, and what I would say was just watch the flare. Just watch the flare change, and watch what the light does as well. So it's, in a way, it's made it less bloom, it's less halation. As you can see here, the flare is not as accentuated, and in general, not as pleasing. So if Lawrence, can we get a full screen of the Tiffin and then a full screen of the non? Yeah, so that's live, so it's quite digitized. And you see the huge difference that the Tiffin makes. It blooms that light in the back in a pleasing, more filmic fashion. The bokeh in the back looks a little bit better. So in my opinion, I wouldn't really take off the 1/8. I'd say that's slightly overexposed on the screenshot that was grabbed, so that's my bad there. But I would say maybe without the Tiffin, it's a little bit of a too digitized image. So with the Tiffins, you get something that's a little bit more filmic and more aesthetically pleasing. So I'm just going to pop those back on now. And that, for me, is pretty much all I'm going to talk about with the Blackmagic there. If Lawrence wants to come in, we'll do the red one. Thank you for your patience with this, guys. We've tried to make this as smooth as possible, and I hope the audio is coming through clean, and I hope the feed's also clean. There we go. Right, there we go. So as you can see straight away, I've lost the exposure that I initially exposed for post-polarizing. So I'm just going to pop that back up.
You need to pop me up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to wander into a frame sometimes.
Okay.
You appear to be here. Right, as Aaron put me up, Aaron has put me up, wonderful. So, we will talk next about the red. The reason Aaron swapped out for this one is we're now going to talk about the camera I own. This isn't particularly my one, this is Joel's, I believe. We're going to talk about the wonderful Red One. Now, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema is a very new camera, it's quite recent. You can jump behind it, get it going, because we'll bring it up in a side-by-side. Aaron will bring up whatever Aaron will bring up. Have you swapped over the input? You want to take it out that Blackmagic HDMI adapter and then, actually you know what, just pop that white BNC. So the wonderful thing about the Red One is that the Red One is now very old. The Red One came out, I believe, in 2007 the first model came out. Now you might ask yourself, who on earth would want a camera that is about 13 years old? The wonderful thing to understand about the Red One is that it was one of the it was the first model of Red cameras. I think if anybody knows Red cameras, they are world renowned for being some of the finest digital cinema cameras you can get your hands on. The second thing about them is that they were heavily disruptive in the market. To begin with, it was Sony and Arri, if you know the German company Arri, very important cinema manufacturer. I could go on for hours about them, but I will not. They dominated the market pretty heavily. So Sony were the first to release a digital camera, and then Arri would go on to start producing digital cameras because they could see the market was changing as much as they didn't particularly want it to. So the Red One was released. It was one of the first digital cameras to be affordable, quote unquote, as in not costing a house. It only cost a small car, perhaps, a new small car. And Peter Jackson loved them. Peter Jackson was one of the first people to really be behind Red. Have we got an output for that, Aaron? Can we bring up the V4? V4 or V1, either way, because V4 will give me allow me to talk whilst the image is on the screen. So yeah, there we go. I mean, as much as everybody would rather see me than the thing. My lenses are on this though. Now the thing to understand about the Red One is that it was very disruptive to the market. So Peter Jackson fell in love with it. The social network was shot on it. It was really that opening ground from digital being a thing that was a possibility to being the future. It was what it was. The thing about them is that they are surprisingly affordable now if you know where to look. You can have the camera that was used on the social network. There's a few other really big films it was used for. I can't think of them off the top of my head. They're available. It shoots in RAW, which Aaron will have mildly covered with the Blackmagic Pocket, but the thing to understand with RAW is that it means that your white balance isn't baked in, your ISO isn't baked in. A lot of those things that are pretty much unchangeable when you shoot your standard footage are things that can actually be changed in post. Its problems are that it involves massive amounts of data. To shoot in RAW means that you will probably be shooting about, what did we say, a gig per minute, wasn't it?
16 gigs will fill in 9.5 minutes.
9.5 minutes for 16 gig. To put that into perspective, I've taken 64 gig cards with the C100 and done an entire day of shooting. So there is a comparison to be made there. It is also heavy, isn't it, Joel? What was it, body only, 10 pounds? To put that into perspective, I think it possibly weighs, okay, let's bring him out here, you're on camera 3 there. It probably weighs, what would we say? Probably 5 times what the C100 is?
Possibly more.
Possibly more. So if you've picked up the C100, which I hope some of you second years and third years can attest to being things you've done, because if you haven't, I'm terribly worried, you will know that that sounds pretty heavy, because the C100, if you were to hold it with its pistol grip, its side grip for a while, is a bit heavy on the old wrist. I'd say we've been and shot things places, haven't we? And you've taken the red one. You held my red one. How did you feel after that day?
Knackered.
Yes, I am unsurprised. Did you want a V4 for me, Aaron? Thank you. So what you'll see is that it's got an incredibly beautiful image. Right now, it's currently got a vintage Soviet lens on it, which just means it was an older photography lens that's been modified for cinema standard. The thing to understand is that these different types of cameras have different types of mounts. The Canon 90D and the C100 have what we call EF mount, which is Canon as a company made for their photography cameras. A very good quality glass. They are photography lenses though. The Blackmagic has what we call a micro four thirds, which means that its sensor is quite small, so it takes very specific lenses. As you can see, it looks beautiful. It looks incredibly good. But yeah, marvelous, thank you. Joel is showing me, we've got some EF glass right here, and we'll compare it to the EF. I can hold it, oh yeah, either way. So we've got EF there, as you can see. So that's a photography lens. Now this is one of my PL mount lenses. And then we'll see Joel's very high-end cinema lens. They are, as you can see, can you show them the flange stat? Can you show them the flange stat on the C100? If you hold it up on the C100, that might look pretty good. Tell me, Aaron, if you can see it or not. C100. Sorry, the red one. Does that show up all right on the... There we go. And you focus it. It might not focus that close. Oh no, it will. It will. There you go. You can see that it's got multiple flanges to it. You want to forward, 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 forward. Oh! Maybe I'll work the focus on it.
Pretty good idea.
So we can see, if you hold that standard there you go. You can see that it has 4 little sort of lugs on it. Can you rotate it 90 degrees towards camera? Towards camera. So I can see the back plate. So hold it that way for me. So you can see, if I focus this up nicely, you can see that it's got these 4 little plates here. Now these bolt into the front of the camera effectively with a pull down lens. It's not going anywhere. Now unlike the EF mount, which sort of clips into place and is held in with a spring, which you can't quite see if you hold it up, but you know, you can get an idea for it. I mean, look at that there, and you can also see there's little metal clips. This, as you look, if you turn it to the side, so we've got side and so I can see the markings for me, Joel. Yeah, just you hold it there, you're fine. I just need to focus it up. You can see if you look at this, there are markings on there. This is because it's a fully automatic lens. If you saw the little metal pins that were on the back of the Canon lens, your aperture is solely dealt with by the camera. You know, that's not, you can't adjust that manually. Whilst if we go back to the other lens, you can see that that is completely done on the lens. We've got focus on that front ring, zoom on the middle ring, and we have aperture on that back ring. So if you turn that so we can see the aperture side, and you point that lens towards that, just so I can see the back, and then we can turn the aperture and show it. No, straight through. We'll shoot through the lens. Let me focus it up so we can see it. Come on, come on. You might be a bit close to me there. Pull it back. On here? Oh, we will do in a second, yeah. So if you close, oh, hold that there, Joel. If you close the aperture on it, can you see that aperture stopping down, guys? I mean, you can see it, it opens up, it stops down. That's in practice there, and it's not clicked. So you can go between apertures to really finely tune that focus. There we go, and it's zooming in as well. And that, of course, is where those elements inside are moving around. So that's certainly a really interesting, it's a very, very, very high quality lens. We'll have a look at it on camera in a minute and we'll swap it over and you'll see that there's a vast difference. Did you want to do the lens change now? Did you want to get camera 1 and bring it round so we can see the lens change in action?
Yeah.
Or did you want to try and do it off of this camera, Aaron?
Do it off this camera.
We can try and try it off this camera? We can just about see it there. I'm gonna zoom it in a bit. Oh, the job of 8 people done by 3. So I'm going to focus that. Where's my focus grip on? Oh, did it up here. Right, so you can see that lens there. You can see that size difference. The other thing, of course, being that that's because it's a prime. You know, that smaller lens is a prime. What is it? 58? Is that yeah, that's the 58. It's a Helios 58. So the first thing that happens is I can see it. As you can see here, it clips on like this. I turn this way, and I pull the lens out. So the lens goes on like that. You see, he puts it in. That's 85. Oh, that's the 85 one. I don't know where I've put the back cap on this. I think I've put it back in my box. Or have it got moved over there? Either way, neither here nor there. And so there are these back caps. I'm going to go put the glass on here. So, yeah, so I put it away sensibly. Working too hard. The camera assistant in me is running all the kit back to the box. So let's have a look at what that looks like. Do you want to frame it up? Because I know you like playing with the new lens. So if we move over to say V4, Aaron, so we've got a bit of camera 2 and a bit of the live view. Oh no, he's put it on me. Put it on the table. He's changing sensitivity. So, one of the things that I think is fantastic about this camera, and Aaron will let me know how long we've gone on for. I mean, we can do a comparison between camera 2 and a TV studio camera, and probably one of the finest cinema cameras that's been made. We are good, right? So, I think one of the things to cover is, like I said, white balance not baked in, ISO not baked in. We've covered the time. Aaron's desperate to.
I was going to move some stuff over for you guys.
Oh, okay, sure. Stereo. So, one of the upsides about that is, like I said, because we're about 5 or 6 revisions on, this technology is now sort of in the base level. Is now in the base level camera. Well, it's not hit base level cameras. You will not be finding a DSLR that records RAW. Look at me. No, there's not internally, not without buying extra things. Perhaps certain mirrorless cameras might be recording RAW now. Which one's?
The R5.
The R5. So that's the Canon R5, isn't it? Canon R5. What's that? About £3,000 to purchase.
Potentially even more.
So, I mean, that's £3,000 body only, people. What else are we talking about? The Nikon mirrorless cameras don't produce their RAW internally. You're completely blocking my shot. Thank you. Yeah. Terribly helpful. So we've got the Nikon cameras will mirrorless cameras will produce RAW with an external recorder. Most things it's only with an external recorder. And to be fair, if you were to purchase or look into purchasing something like an FS7, FS5, FX9 or an FX6, which are probably the mid-range Sony cameras that are capable of shooting high-end cinematic visuals, they are over £5,000 and will not shoot RAW internally. You can get a RAW output from both of them, but for the FS7 and the FX9, you will have to purchase an external output for that. You know, which is an extra piece of kit, which is £500 in its own right. The FS5 and FX6 will produce RAW internally, but you will need to, once again, buy an external recorder. Now, RAW is probably something that you will want to know about. It might not be something you need to produce in at the minute, but if you're seriously considering producing a film that's going to be screened, a film that's going to be color graded by someone who is either A, professional, or B, working their way towards a level of professionalism, working in RAW is the way to go, and it's certainly where the industry is headed. The other thing I'll say about this is all of the cameras we have at the university at the minute are 1080p. That's it. That's the highest resolution they're going to shoot in. 90?
4K.
Will it do 4K?
Yeah, the 90 does 4K.
4K internal?
Yeah, 24 frames per second or 25. If you want to go higher, you stop it down to 1080p. But that will do 4K internal.
Oh, okay, so I take it back. The 90D is the only camera we have that does 4K internal, and as you've seen, whilst nice, it's certainly not our best camera. The options with lenses aren't particularly high. It's a fine camera, but it's not necessarily going to fulfill your needs. It's not until you reach the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema that you'll start doing 4K like internally with that. But the Red One will produce 4.5K RAW internally. Now, yes, this is why I'm saying they're a 13-year-old camera, but they are highly capable. They are producing things now because they were the top of the spec. There was nothing better. The only thing you'd be looking at is probably, it was pre-Venice, so I don't even know, probably the F5. The F3 was probably the next thing to come out from Sony, and it wouldn't be long before we saw the Arri Alexa, purely because it needed to compete with this. Right, so we're looking at the screen. I love that image. That image is completely unfiltered, should I say? Well, literally, there is no filter on it. There is no, there's no matte box appended to the front of this at the minute, but you could put those Tiffins on. You could put other forms of diffusion on. Aaron's telling me to call it to a close because I can't stop talking about the Red One. We're looking at here? Oh, the light's gone. Our cheeky little light has disappeared. But let's put it into comparison. So, I mean, if we were to break down, before we start our lighting demo, because we would like to show you how we can create an interesting looking lighting setup with this. Break it down. Like I said, you first years, that 90D will be your best friend. It will be your education into how to make a film, and hopefully you should very quickly find yourself pushing against the boundaries of it. You should be saying to yourself, oh, if only I could have this, or I could have that, or I could have the other. In which case you'll be ready to start taking on that C100. The C100 is one of the most forgiving and helpful cameras I have ever come across. If you work with it, I think if you put even a remote amount of effort into it, you will produce a fantastic looking image. And it really is, probably for the same reason it's stuck around for so long, is the C100 is there to make you look good. Once you start getting out of that, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema will help you, but it wants you to know what you are doing. And all I can say is the Red One was designed by some form of deity somewhere to punish people who do not know what they are doing. It will produce the most incredible looking images. It's gone, all right. But it will only do it when you know what you are doing. But when you know what you are doing, you will be able to work at the level of high-end cinematographers who worked on films like The Social Network. I bring up The Social Network so frequently because it was the film that they very much sold the Red One as a viable digital acquisition format, when in reality, had it been 2 years earlier, that would have been shot completely on 35mm film. And that is the thing, is you treat it like film. Whilst a lot of these other cameras are very digital, you have to treat that like film. And then we could talk about my favorite camera. My camera. No, this is, we also have Super 8. One of the things we are very interested in, or I am certainly very interested in doing, is talking to you guys about film as well, whilst I wait for Aaron to sort out his second light and we do a lighting demonstration. Film is a very important way to think about it. We're not going to do it? Can't. It's gone? No cable? What does it need? If you check the front of my bag, I might have one. Anyway, so one of the things about film is that is a completely different beast, but it will teach you a level of discipline that digital sadly doesn't, because you are happy to acquire as much as you possibly can. If you check the front of my bag, there might be a standard micro USB in there. Are we helpful? I would love some questions, to be honest, from the chat and see if there are any. No one's asked any. Please ask questions, because I will just talk. Nobody saw my other lighting demo where I just talked, and I covered a lot. But yeah, so there are a couple of different types of film acquisition formats. Like I said before, there was 35mm was the gold standard. It's expensive and it's big. Any questions? Nah, they won't have heard of me saying it yet. But you heard that. How strange. There was 35mm, which is incredibly expensive. 16mm, which is somewhere between that and Super 8. And Super 8 is here. This is a Super 8 camera. They're surprisingly cheap to get your hands on now. Fairly. I'll talk about gels and light, yeah. We'll do that together because you know you like your lighting stuff more. I want to talk about film, Aaron. So we're talking about this very quickly, and so these are low ISO. If you've ever shot anything and gone, wow, this is 1600, never happening on film. You know, so these are the things that you have to get to grips with these cameras. These, very much the Blackmagic, maybe I'd say in a lot of cases the Blackmagic, but especially the Red One, are about people who trained in film moving into digital. Maybe it's not so much the Blackmagic, because it's much more modern. It's much more the expectation of digital. But the Red was for people who'd spent 20 years loading magazines. Are there any questions yet?
No, but one person did point out that the GH4 records in RAW.
The GH4 does record in RAW, but we don't have a GH4. What I'm pointing out is stuff we had at the university, specifically. At the minute, as well, things may change, you know. Kit is ever evolving. There are things that you can do. I mean, we have the Samurai as well, but the Samurai is only a 1080p external, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. Because that's the other thing we could talk about. If we had an image of the C100, Joel's C100 setup, you have the Ninja 5 on there, don't you? You could just turn that camera around if you wanted. Either way, whatever. And you'll see that, oh, Aaron swapped it over. Aaron swapped it over. He swapped cameras. Look behind. He's behind you, Joel. That one. There. So you can see that the monitor on top of it is not just a monitor. That is also a recorder. That is designed for recording RAW. Not RAW. That doesn't record RAW. That's designed for recording an off-board picture of higher quality than it will shoot internally. Now,
4K 60.
So that will do a 4K 60.
4K 60. Yeah.
So what? Does it take a RAW 4K out of the C100,
No.
or is it an upscale?
It's yeah. The 4K is downscaled to 1080 family, and that is what you get. You get the downsample.
So it's, yeah, because when we talk about RAW, the most complicated thing about RAW is the fact that you have to remember the encoding process you do out of Premiere, or the encoding process you do out of, I'll go right there. Now you can see me. The encoding process you do out of Premiere, your camera does a version of that already. All of these cameras do that, except for the Blackmagic and except for the Red. Everything else has, we were going to look at the 5D Mark III as well, but lots of tripods, lots of cameras, lots of swapping over. But the 5D, so the C100 and the 90D do a form of encoding of that data that comes from the sensor, and that creates that file. Whilst you're not doing the same thing with the Red, it's sort of half packaged. It sort of part-way packages all of this data so you've got access to it later. The same with the Blackmagic, and that's why you can color grade it so well. Did you want to come through and we'll talk about lighting, Aaron? And we'll just leave it on a, we can leave it on V4, I think, and just have, and that should have the input. So it's got the output from the Red and thing. And so we'll get onto the interesting part about lighting rather than having me waffle for 25 minutes about different types of cameras in a nonsensical and non-linear fashion. As you can see, we have quite a nice shot here. Don't look at the man there, look at the shot here. You can see that we're bouncing this nice purple light out of here. That's your aperture bulb, which I'll let you talk about. We've picked a number of different objects here. It's not just to look fancy. A lot of it is to do with the fact that you've got different types of reflective surfaces here. So you can't see the base of this stand particularly well, but the camera is matte black and a non-reflective surface. We've got the book here, which is a mildly reflective surface, but not massively. The same with this DVD case. It's a PC CD-ROM case, but the same difference. It's quite a shiny surface, quite reflective. And this is obviously highly reflective. So we're obviously playing with lots of different types of surfaces here. Aaron, you talk now.
I hope this is working and picking me up. So yes, what should I start with? Should I start with the, I guess I'll start with the bulb, and unfortunately this has died. I don't know which camera, there I am. This has died unfortunately, and actually This is the Aputure MC, and we had a lovely little warm light. I'm actually really sad that it's died out.
It is a lovely light.
Yeah, and actually we had it in the book, shooting light into the Super 8, and it resulted in a nice bit of lens flare and bounce, and it made the book kind of look a little bit more mystical. But unfortunately, it's died. So at the same time, it's massively customizable, so I can show you the same customized features as the MC, but with the bulb. So I am going to have to just get my phone out, and I'm not being rude, but I use the phone to connect to it.
He's very rude.
So
well, that's the wonderful thing about a lot of the LED technology, because we're going to have a little look at. We've got a if Joel wants to show it, we've got a 650. Do you want to show this the 650 on the camera? We've got a 650 light in this. So this is ARRI. Once again, that company name turning up. They literally shaped the cinema industry for about 70 years now. That's an ARRI 650. That's providing a lot of this light. So if you can see the orange highlight and the general, I'm trying to pick some up. There's some over here as well. You can see there's a lot of orange turning up. That's because we've got it, and we've got the gel diffusion on top of it. It's two different ways of working we can have a look at. We can have a look at the LED side, and we can have a little look at talk about tungsten as well. But anyway, I'll let Aaron talk about it.
Is it worth us maybe also popping the Tiffin in to show a little bit of the bounce, just like we did yesterday as a little test?
Oh yeah, I think that'd be perfect.
Yeah. You can just screw it off the front there, Joel. So, like I said, I wanted to talk about the customizable, features of the Aputure bulbs, because they're wireless, and I'm going to come to the screen here, and as you can see, I've got my colours there that I can choose. I've got presets that I can use. So what should we look at some warmth, or no, actually, there we go.
Oh.
We've got some
that's very bright.
So we've got also a fire sort of impersonation in a way. So you could pop this in front of somebody and make it look like they're in front of a fire.
If you want to highlight what that is, if you look down here,
yeah,
you can see that light flicker going on there.
Yeah.
Now remember, this we're using. Aaron technically is using the light as a practical in this shot. A practical refers to any kind of light which is a light source creating light in the shot. Yeah, do you know? Pop it in front. Pop it in front. This is the Tiffin coming in front.
Also, just to show you, I've unplugged the light, so it literally is a lamp with a wireless bulb that's connectable anywhere you want. So yeah, it's a really good practical. And if you look at the bloom change, so if you remove that Tiffin and look at the change we get from the light, it really just adds a nice little bit of halation.
Yeah,
there.
Look at the edge of that book. Watch it come over the book. Go for it again, Joel. And you can see that that's what the Tiffin is doing. It also does that to skin tones. I'm not going to get in frame and have it illustrate what it does to skin. I'm not going to get into frame and have it illustrate what it does to skin tones. You can't see it. It softens skin tones. Not that my face needs any more softening.
Hello, guys.
You stepped right into the shadow as well.
Yeah. There we go.
You can see it works very well on a close-up. You get it much better on Aaron.
No.
Aaron, yeah. Hate being this side.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you, Joel. Why aren't you up here? Anyway, as I was saying, so the thing is, we're using it as a practical, but those firelight effects and the like can be used just to bounce off camera onto somebody, and they will light them very much perfectly like that. They're very, very useful for that. Something which you can't get with tungstens are those effects. And that police light thing, that can look fantastic. You mount that just out of frame over a car, and it will just give that shining light across the car. It can look brilliant. And also, LEDs allows you to play a lot more with colour in a simpler fashion than tungstens.
It's also worth noting, I've put the actual bulb for this lamp somewhere else, but if you're using these high-end cameras and you're using a bulb that's maybe, it's not the right, so it leads to banding.
Yes, if the power source is out of phase with your shutter speed.
There you go.
What that can lead to is, of course, you have to remember, now we're going to have to get into interlace. This is why I'm struggling to make this video for them. It's so complicated. But very basically, remember that your camera is producing lines of information as it goes up. If this is flickering on and off at a speed you cannot perceive, but your camera can, you will suddenly have issues with there being lines up and down.
Yeah.
That is the one massive problem with LEDs. LEDs are not perfect. They are not the catch-all. They have issues when because they are powered by something we call PWM, or pulse width modulation. It's just how LEDs work, but it means flashing them on and off or dimmer and brighter very quickly, you know, and that can create problems for the camera that your eyes cannot perceive, but will look terrible on the camera. If you've ever seen that very thin banding going up, that's because your shutter speed is out of phase with them.
We had it on a short that we shot on the Red One and the Blackmagic for the 48-hour film competition for Screen Northants. We were shooting something in a kind of a kitchen, and you could just see it banding across the frame. So Joel just kindly put the shutter angle down, and it resynced it to the light, and it got rid of it. But sometimes you can't get rid of it, which is why these kind of custom bulbs really come into use, because as you can see now, you're not getting any banding whatsoever.
Yeah, they are very, very good for that. So I think this is a nice shot. We've also got the fairy lights in the background, and that will help illustrate bokeh, which is apparently, for anybody who's ever interested where it comes from, apparently it is to do with I'm trying to think of the technical term, but basically it's a mangling of the Japanese word to blur, which I
did not know that.
Most people do not know.
Ah, I like that.
But as you can see, as Joel pulls that focus, you can see those nice circles of confusion, as we call them. They are called circles of confusion. As that comes out, it's very nice. It's very nice. It's very good. They look beautiful, and that's what gives you that texture. Because obviously, with this lens, can you pull that out to an 18 for us? So if we pull something to, if we hold this here and you pull the focus to that, and really just completely try and, can you pull the focus, pull your focus as close as you can, and I'll move into it.
Yeah. There you go.
So that's moved that right out, and how close? See, look.
We're actually getting the bokeh at the top as well.
Yeah.
From the little light.
See, because that's how close that will focus. Let's get something nice and small, because it makes sense. Let's use the end of this HDMI lead. Now, if I hold that in frame, you can see that you can hold something very, very close and in focus, and you can absolutely, and that gives it that nice soft feel. You know, I'm not going to do that. That would have been hilariously stupid on my part.
If we were able to have another person in this TV studio, because we're completely winging this at the moment, we could cut to the anamorphic shot. And the difference with the anamorphic bokeh and the spherical bokeh is it ovals these kind of fairy lights that you get in the back. So unfortunately, we would cut to it. And the anamorphic that I've got is 1:3:3 squeeze. Normally, higher end anamorphics are 2 times, so the bokeh is more oval shape. And actually, if you look at more feature films these days, you can kind of see it's got like a waterfall effect, is the way I'd explain it. And that's what the anamorphic does to the bokeh. Unfortunately, we can't get somebody else in the gallery, but you'd see the difference. As you can see, they're quite spherical here, and then an anamorphic will make them oval, which is more desirable or not. It depends on what you're after, really.
And that's what we talk about with spherical and anamorphic. The other thing you'll notice as well is, can you pull that to an F5? T5, rather. We had a question.
Quite similar when you try to film in specific cities at night, the bokeh effect.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
assuming that's what Jordan Smith.
Ah, hello, Jordan.
Hello. Hello. Yeah, if you pull that to, can you zoom it in and pull it to like an F5?
Yes.
Pull it up a bit. I want it just so that it's not wide open. Something a bit before wide open.
Yep,
So
that's 5.6.
can you take it down to a 3? Because what I'm trying to show is
3 is wide open.
3 is wide open. Oh, okay. Can you get it so we've got a bit of blur on it? Oh, pull it out of focus as well. Just pull it out of focus. Right. And hit it like an F5. And really out of focus. Really, really, really out of focus. You'll see what I'm trying to illustrate here, because right, if you pull that back in focus a bit, just so I've got a little bit, so I can see, little more. And can you stop that up a bit? Yeah. There we go. Right. Now, can you see how this lens is quite nice, because it really manages to round off the bokeh full stop, but I'm just going to sort of step in here. If I pull this down, you can start to see edging appear on it. You can see how many blades are in there. Now on smaller lenses, you might make your lens choice. If you're DOPing something, you might make your lens choice on the ground of, I want my bokeh to be perfectly hexagonal. I know it's a 6-blade lens, and that way when I punch in and I blur out those backgrounds, they're going to have these perfect octagonal shapes. You could choose to use red lights for that, and suddenly you've got effectively the mental imagery of stop signs everywhere. You know, it's one of those things that you can do that looks really, really beautiful. I'm going to just pull this back into focus now, just because it was out of focus now. It's starting to irk me somewhat.
We were going to see if we could quickly swap to the anamorphic, just to show the different kind of...
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you unplug the SDI, it should auto switch. We hope it
It
works
will auto switch.
the other side for you guys.
Now I've said that, that'll ruin it entirely.
Yeah.
There
There we go.
quickly. There we go. Ooh, hey.
There we go. So I know we can't do a side-by-side at the moment, but hopefully you can see the
Oh,
difference.
well, hold on. I'll pull a screen grab on this, and then I'll put.
Yeah,
I can
good
punch
idea,
that one
good
in.
idea, good idea. I'll maybe reframe this slightly, just get a little bit.
Also, another thing that changed the bokeh is
Yes, you got the TIFF in as well.
it's back on yours.
Oh, you've put it back on, thank you.
Focal
Brill,
length,
brill,
'cause
brill.
yours is a lot more zoomed in than mine.
Yeah, yeah, and then I don't know if this will punch in for you guys. No, I was gonna, because I can zoom in. Maybe we can get a second camera on there. Yes, bear with us, guys. We do have a few things. There we go. If I zoom here. There we go. And while Lawrence is grabbing a screen grab.
Are those Tiffin filters the Pro Mist light?
Yes, they are the Pro Mist. So actually, let me just let a little bit more light in. Yeah, they are this is the 1.8 Pro Mist. So I'll take this off for you guys, just to kind of show you the difference. There is a polarizer on here as well. As you can see, it's changing as I just try and remove that. And I can actually whack the lens flare with the Tiffin, which is fantastic. So maybe I could find something to focus on. We'll get that back. So even so, that's me literally holding the Tiffin in front of the camera and just switching it as I go. So it's something that could maybe be creative on a video that you want to do, because it's always nice to do practicals in camera and rather than adding them in post, because they can feel a little bit different. And that's literally just by holding this loosely. As you can see, that's it without. And then you see the difference straight away there. Immediately more aesthetically pleasing. And I'll actually just screw this back on. I would say maybe as well that the quarter might be a bit too much. I did think about getting the quarter Pro Mist for a while, but I wasn't sure whether it would be something I could use a lot of the time, because it adds a lot of bloom and a lot of halation to the light sources, which can maybe be applicable to a certain project, but not generally. With the 1.8 that I've got on at the moment, it tends to be something that people leave on their lenses a lot of the time. For me personally, I don't think I'll ever really take these 1.8 and the polarizer. It's a great combo. So I'll just... You can see the polarizer there on that mist case. Just lovely kind of removal of the glimmer there that we don't want. We're just able to just finesse that and get rid. That's interesting. And that's me changing the aperture, so that'll affect the bokeh as well in the back. Do we want to jump back to the red at all now?
If we've got a screen grab, we'll jump back.
Yeah, Lawrence, you got a screen grab? Yeah, he's got a screen grab, he says. Brilliant, yeah.
You on T1.5? F1.8, should I say?
Yeah, I was 1.8, and this will be going to T3.
2.8.
There we go. So, does Joel want to talk at all for this one? It is your camera.
I can do.
Okie dokes. I think you're not mic'd up though, are you?
No.
Oh dear.
Right. That should be something.
Cool. Joel's going to have a little chat now about his red one.
Okay.
What made you purchase it? What maybe different between the C100?
Don't say me.
You talk about why you chose the red one.
I think I've already covered why I chose the red one, to be honest.
You're a graduate, so.
Yeah.
There we go. Now
Joel.
Cool. Go on, Joel.
Right, do I want to get in front of?
You can get in front of frame. We can both stand. I'll stand behind Mist. You can stand behind the bird, and we'll be like, it's.
yeah, pull out a little bit.
Are you sure?
Brilliant.
That probably would have been much nicer without. So yeah.
So I originally started on the C100 back there and have recently just transitioned to the red one. The reason for doing so is, one, the red one was really cheap for what it was. I picked it up from some guy on eBay for a fairly decent price. I also picked up the C100 very cheap as well. That's what made me get the C100, always after a bargain. But no, the red one is just the next level from the C100. It's completely different in every ways. The C100 is such a solo shooter kind of camera versus the red one is a beast for like narrative filmmaking, which is what I'm working my way into, DOPing on narrative films. And the C100 was great, but it just got to the point where I felt like I'd sort of mastered it. I'd got to like the point where I could only do so much, so this was the next sort of logical upgrade. But I used one before, I used Lawrence's on a shoot, fell in love with it, found this for cheap, and then dropped all of my savings on it. So, and because it's so old as well, there are issues with it. But it's one of those things that, you know, no matter what kind of old thing you buy, whether that's a car or a camera, there's always going to be issues that you've kind of just got to work through. But no, it's a nice camera. I'm not sure I'd recommend it though.
I wouldn't, and I own one. Like I said before, and I will say it again, if you came and said to me, Lawrence, I'm interested in purchasing a camera, I wouldn't suggest a red one. And that sounds completely counterintuitive to what I said previously. But that's because I think I bought one because my thing other than doing this is making films. You know, and it's just a tool that allows me to also go and do teaching elsewhere on cinematic level equipment. It's not the self-shooting camera. It is not you are going to go do a music video. It's you're going to go do a music video if there are 14 people. Yeah, that's when you're going to do it. When you've got an assistant, when you've got someone to change lenses with you, when you have a tripod that must have cost over $1,000 because it holds the weight of it, or you found another one of those very cheap. I would always suggest that, because if we take the comparison between the image we saw from the Blackmagic and the image we saw here, I think that the Blackmagic is the thing I would suggest for most people because its capability is incredibly strong. If you were to walk out onto, and it also looks professional. I mean, we haven't seen a side-by-side, I don't think, of the Red yet. The Red looks like a piece of equipment. It has an equipment-y aesthetic. Let's put it that way. It is big, it is heavy. I've had it fall off of places and I didn't worry about it. I worried about what it fell onto. Whilst if you take something like the Blackmagic is light. The Blackmagic would, if you kitted it out, would fit in a bag. The C100 is light. If you kitted it out, it would fit in a bag. The 90D is light. If you kitted it out, it would fit in the bag. The Red one probably needs, we were looking at Pelly cases for these, weren't we? Yeah. Pelly cases for those uninitiated are the lockable, expensive cases for carrying camera gear. They are very high quality, very expensive, like all camera gear is. Like I said, we were looking at them. The standard one for the Red one was big.
Very.
And expensive.
Very.
You could probably buy another camera for the price of one of them, second hand, admittedly, but yeah.
Do we want to do the dramatic lighting, or we pull this down and put the Arri and get the flare across?
Oh yeah, 100%.
I think just to finish it off as well is when you're deciding what camera to buy, don't ask what camera, ask what you're going to be shooting with it. For me, I don't need a camera that's going to shoot corporate videos because I've still got a camera over there. I've still got my C100 that does all that. it was just lacking in narrative films, and that is truly what I want to go into. So,
and that's not to say it cannot shoot a narrative film. The C100 is very good for that. It's just it's not a camera like the Red One. It's not a camera like the Blackmagic Pocket at this rate. You know, they just elevate above that station. But that's not because the camera does it. The camera isn't doing that work. You see Aaron talk about that and you go, camera, very specific lens choice, very specific filters on the lens. That's a stacking system there. And that's the difference. And some of you will have seen that that Black Pro Mist go in front of it and gone like, oh wow, that's massively different. Some of you will have gone, is it really? But the thing to remember is that's the slight difference. Filmmaking of every level, whether it be corporate, whether it be educational, whether it be sports, or whether it be feature, independent or short filmmaking, those little changes, those little things you do add up. You know, anamorphic on its own won't make everything. You know, the Black Pro Mist on its own won't make everything. The polarizer on its own won't make everything. But once we put those things together, that's a look. That's an intense change between just popping a lens on a camera and going, do I want wide or do I want tight? You know, you need to get beyond that place. We need to get past that. Yeah, so shall we look at some nice, we're gonna go for lens flares now because they're good fun. So I'm gonna pull the lights down in the other room, or do you wanna go do that, Joel, and I'll deal with this one?
Yeah, if you want to pull the lights down, Joel, and then...
I'm gonna take this off here. Right, I'm taking the, actually I might leave them on and take them off once I've moved it. So we can see the difference. An educational moment for people. So, I need to put my gloves on because these are hot. Where are my gloves? Sorry?
it goes on mute the whole time.
Oh, quite possibly. Well, they could have heard you through me, hopefully. Yeah, please do. Ooh. Ooh. Do you want to stop that down to T3? Or is it already at T3? That is another thing to say about the Red. It consumes light like some form of light-eating beast. It is heinous in that regard. Oh, I knew they probably would from me. I mean, if they could hear me. So, I'm bringing this light into frame about, what, here-ish? Right, so you can already see a slight flare going on there. See, gloves. I'm not handling this without gloves, and I really, really hope you do not either. I don't need the paperwork, and I know Aaron don't. So, once again, so this is with 2 stops. I think these are 1-stop sheets of diffusion. So if I just pull one back, you can see what that's doing to the light. It's cutting it by half, but it is also softening it as well. Can you see the difference there? We go down. It's not just darker. If you look at how it's reflecting off of here or off of here, you can see that the reflections have less graduation between them. Instead of the light ending sharply, it ends more softly. Now, the more I take off of this, the more that the sharper it'll be. I know you want this, Aaron, but I'm showing people about diffusion. There you go. That's what he came for. And you can see that's a beautiful look to it. Pull it out to 18. That'll really do it. You can see that. Now, the reason these flare like this is because, I mean, that's incredible looking. You have to admit. Most of these cameras, I think, can we get the 90D up as well, just to see what the 90D flare looks like with the L lens on it? But what you'll see here is that reflects in that way. What you're seeing is the light bouncing off of the different internal elements inside of it. So every single one of those circles and blown out parts is a different part of the inside of the lens having light reflect off of it and reflect back on other bits. That's why when Aaron zooms in or zooms out, it changes its shape. And that's also why when he pans, by the way, it changes its angle. It looks more triangular at certain points because it's hitting the edge of it.
Yeah. Will it work?
Oh no, it wasn't really working earlier, was it?
Was it not working?
No, no.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to show what the comparison would look like on it.
Keep the tiff in off as well. That'd be nice. That'll be more accentuated with this sort of light.
Yeah, if we show the tiffin.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So this is more obnoxious.
Is it just the tiffin on or is everything?
Everything's on there.
I mean, you can see that. You can see now. Part of that is also what we would call a circle of confusion. It's that area around the edge of it. That circle here. You can see my hand. If you just pull this way for me, you can see my hand circling around that there. That is a circle of confusion, and that is where that light cannot resolve. It's out of focus because it's bouncing in from a different area inside of the lens. Now tiffin in front. Now look at that. And look at the extra. Can you see that the tiffin itself, because it wasn't quite on, if you don't pull that a little way, Joel, you can see that the tiffin itself is adding a secondary flare. And that's because it's another piece of glass that's reflecting something. Every layer is a reflection. Now, a lot of DOPs, very traditional DOPs, try and get away from the flare. They don't want the flare. There are a lot of lenses have their coatings on them to reduce flare. Every single element has an extra piece of coating on it to reduce this. And that's because you don't want it all of the time. But sometimes you really, really do. I mean, I think it's an incredible looking thing. Did we want to try the C100 with the L lens on it and see what that looks like?
Yeah, that would work.
Because the C100 might... I'd love to show the 90D because the 90D will produce wonderful images like this as well. It's just you will start pushing up against the edge of it very quickly. Can anyone check to see if we've got any questions in the chat real quick?
You want me to stick the Hunjo?
Yeah, put the Hunjo on it.
Just have an L lens on at the moment.
I know it's got an L lens on it, but it's, I think that you can also show you can do it for prime as well. Not just zooms, it's not just zooms. Don't need to unplug it yet anyway. But I think that it's a, it's a beautiful looking thing. I mean, and you can also, you could get rid of some of that flare pretty quickly just by doing that. You can see a lot of it's coming out of the edge of the light. It's where the edge of the light is catching on it. And you can also, if you were to keep your lens still, you can create flare by moving your lights. You don't just pan cameras, you can pan lights as well. And that can create a fascinating looking image as well. We move that light across. Now imagine that as a transition as well. We start off here, we bring this in, we overexpose into white. Now imagine you cut in now a white frame and you pull out somewhere else. You need to consider these things. Right, now we're going to swap over to the old C100.
Swapping over to a newer camera.
Technically, which seems so bizarre when you think about it. Now this is with the 100mm lens on it. You can see that flare as well. The flare quality is different. If you look at that flare is completely different. Now you can see there, that focus has been pulled onto one of the other parts of it, and you can see that image. You see, pull that back for me so we can get that back in focus. That is that lens there. You can see that shadow being pulled through it. That's what a flare is. Some people don't understand. They go, lens do weird thing. It's complicated. It's interesting. You can do a lot with it. I mean, if you can get rid of it, you can see the halation behind there. That's part of what I was talking about with that halation. You can get that from a decent backlight as well.
Tiffin this as well, if you like.
Yeah, pop the tiffin on it as well. Let's find out everything. You can see, now also the tiffin warms as well. You can see that warmth coming into that light. Now remember, obviously it's a tungsten light, so they're by norm pretty light, pretty warm as it is, but that tiffin adds a little something else. Oh God, if I walk in front of it, it'll be like the Alfred Hitchcock thing. A joke which none of you are going to get. Why are all my points of reference so old? I wasn't even alive. That's on the Hunjo.
70 to 24 to 70.
Yeah, try the 24 to 70 just so we can get an equivalent wide, see what it looks like. I wish I had a camera now to show you what a decent lens change looks like. Beautiful. Right. See. Well, what did you expect to happen? See, now look at that lens flare. Here's the other thing is, can you see the color quality difference between the three lens flares? This is very red. And that's due to the way the lenses have been coated. Those lenses have been coated probably with something for infrared, something for a little bit else. Now, add that to, yeah, go and add the Tiffin in full. You see what I mean? Now, you keep that colour. We've added in some green as well. You can only see that green if it's slightly away. You heard Aaron refer to the term bashing earlier. Bashing is a old weird cinema term, which means basically moving something in front of the lens, sometimes even the lens itself, though I won't obviously, which you cannot actually do with the C100 and you cannot do with the 90D. You can't do it, well, you could probably find a way to do it with that, couldn't you, with the Blackmagic? The red one, 100%, because you just unbolt the front of it. You just take the lens off and it still keeps going. But yeah, I mean, look at that, it's beautiful. And you can bring this across here. And do you see what I mean? And you can then use those lenses. If we were to focus the light differently, you can see how, look at that, how that affects the flare as well, because it's so much more focused. If you don't know, I mean, I can't show you from this angle, sadly, but you can focus the light quality on the back of the lenses of the Redheads and the Arri 650s, which you cannot do with an LED. I do not know of a Fresnel LED. You can probably buy Fresnel attachments, but we don't have any.
You get a Fresnel attachment like a Bowen's mount for like an Aperture 120 or something like that.
Yeah, there must be something. But that basically is the difference between going for what we for fill and spot. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we haven't covered. Please ask questions, guys, if you want to know anything. I've just kicked up so much dust, which looks fantastic.
Want to switch back to the red?
Yeah, go for it. And I want to kick up some dust in front of it now, because that can look amazing. Oh, our little red, our little light died.
I think we're back on the red now.
Are we? Yeah. Wonderful. I mean, guys, there's just lots of different things we're just sort of throwing at you here. So if I hold that there, can we get any of this dust? Oh, I need to block that out a little bit. Do you want to punch it in a bit closer onto here, maybe? And if I go this way, and we pull that back, and I do that.
Do it again.
You can see a little bit of that dust there. Can you punch any tighter on here? Oh, actually, shoot across the front of this. There you go. That's what we're looking for. That can look really, really wonderful. God, Lord only knows what the YouTube compression algorithm has done to that. Questions?
No questions.
No questions. I'm going to assume either everybody is bored or everybody is wholly confused by the rambling nature of what has been delivered to them by me. Much more concise with Aaron. And much more silent with Joel. Thanks to him being on mute the entirety of the time. So we've got the Blackmagic here. We're going to have a look at how the Blackmagic's anamorphic flares, shall we? All right, so we're going to swap over to that Blackmagic. We'll have a look how the anamorphic flares on that. Can we post in the chat if we're finding this interesting or educational? If there are no posts, I will just assume we're all confused miserably by this and that it's generally rather aggravating. And that you're unsure why you're still watching it. There we go. Now look at that.
That's J.J. Abrams.
That is the most J.J. Abrams thing I think I could possibly imagine. You might want to stop that down a little bit. I mean, core blimey. See, there we go. Can you see that aperture coming down? Also, that aperture may affect in some way. I mean,
We got a very educational in chat.
ooh!
By Joe. Oof.
Thank you, Joe. We're glad you're enjoying it. Well, I didn't say enjoying it. You just said learning.
Yeah, very interesting. Really interesting. What replies?
Hey!
That looks good, doesn't it?
It does look wonderful. And that's the thing. And it's also playing with that backlight as well. You know, you can stick a figure in shot. You know, you can stick a silhouette in there. You can do all sorts of things. And this is just by laying out and choosing this lighting. If you had seen some of this stuff and someone hadn't told you it's the TV studio, would you believe it's the TV studio you use on a regular basis? You know, if we could do all of this with the C100, a camera that most of you, well, all of you will have access to at some point. You know, we're currently using some slightly different gear because we want to show you that there are options outside of what we currently stock in the kit room. There are things that are available to you, and especially you third years going forward. Once you leave here, like, we're always here for advice, but you will have to start finding utility in your own right to make a flowery statement for buy your own kit. Joel looks at me. Joel's away in the mixer. Go on.
Keep a check at the chat. We got another interesting and it's super cool.
Oh. Well, I like flares. Not as much as Aaron does, but nobody loves lens flares as much as Aaron does. Something about anamorphic lens flare and Aaron going, Aaron, he loves it.
Let's head in and change the side by side.
We can try. What did we want from the side by side? What do people want to?
It was a bokeh comparison.
Bokeh comparison.
Between the black magic and the red.
Okay.
And we did a little bit.
Well, how about I'll snag up this. So at the minute, we've got that there. I will go and snag a screen grab and pop it on, and we'll have a black magic screen grab. And so currently we have live the screen grab for the Blackmagic. Did we want to swap cameras over to the red now then?
Yeah, I'll let it flow.
Once again, guys, any questions at all? No stupid questions, nothing to do. We are happy to talk about all of this for the longest period of time, you'd be surprised. Because the likelihood is we'll stop streaming and keep talking about this amongst ourselves, as we have done for about 3 days. So, can you see that? Let me bring that into frame so we've got a comparison on that flare. What's that? What lens is that? What lens is the anamorphic?
This is 35mm 1.33 anamorphic, so it's about a 70mm.
So it's about 70. That'll pump only to about 50.
Yeah, which is about 70.
Okay. Oh.
That would be about a 70 on a full frame.
Oh, okay. So we're playing that game again, are we? Let's not start that one again. Right. So I'm bringing this into frame. Do you want to stop that down a bit? I kicked up too much dust for an asthmatic, really. I'm going to pull this in a bit more. You want to bring that in a bit tighter, bit tighter, bit tighter, bit tighter, bit tighter to match. A bit further out, I'd say. And I think you can stop that up.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah, because I wanted it wide open to show the bokeh as much as possible.
That's wide open.
Yeah.
That's wide open.
Shall I drop down the ISO a little bit?
Yeah, go for it. What are you at, 400? This is just further proof what kind of monster the red is for eating light. We are going to have to really, really open this out to match up with the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema, which is sort of bizarre in its own right in some ways. See, now you're not going to. You can see that that horizontal flare that's coming from the Blackmagic, and that's due to it being anamorphic. Anamorphic flares like that. It's one of the things. The way it works is an anamorphic lens actually squeezes a larger image onto a standard 35mm piece of film. Once again, the film thing will come up. Doesn't help that I'm highly interested in film at the minute. Let me angle that a bit more in. You can also see that it's something in there. Is you can see the bulb. You know, that bulb is actually coming up. That's what that purple fringing is. You know, it's struggling to resolve some of that bulb. Can you open that up anymore?
No, T3.
Really, blimey. Yeah, hugely. Now that horizontal. Now the thing about it is that so the anamorphic squeezes an image onto a 35mm, and it does it horizontally. it pushes that together so that when it was projected, it would have a lens of the similar type do the same thing the other side, and so it would all match up evenly. But that means that the internals to the glass are actually incredibly complicated. They're sort of elliptical rather than spherical like most lenses are. If you look at the front or center parts of most lenses, they are semicircular. They're either concave or convex due to the way it's trying to focus up the light that's passing through it, whilst the anamorphic lenses are slightly more elliptical. And so that produces these incredibly bizarre images where it's bouncing through and doing weird things. A question?
I'm looking at buying filters. Would it be more sensible to start picking up square filters to use in a matte box or stick with spherical screw-ons?
Aaron can give his opinion first.
That's difficult because it depends where you're at in your gear, really. I haven't got a mic on, so.
You can hear from me.
I would say a matte box for me was not something that I needed to rush into. I want the halation, I want the light bouncing into my lens, hence I got the anamorphic. So I actually just bought a 67mm on the lens filter. However, down the line, I will get a matte box and I will get a Tiffin that's 4x4 or 4x5.65. But for that won't be for another few months. So for now, I'd say that the lens choice works for me.
And it's worth using step up and step down rings.
Yeah.
So if you've got, say, like I do, about 5 lenses for my C100, you buy the filter to match the biggest lens and then step down for all the others. So you're only buying one filter and you're only spending about £5 on sort of step down rings.
Yeah. Lawrence is matte box gang all the way. I think square filters. I think you can do graduated ND filters. You have access to different types of filters. Sorry? What's that, Joel?
But I've been able to, you can screw filters on filters, so.
Yeah, you can screw filters.
You're getting, for cheaper, you can get the look you want quicker.
Oh yeah, I think I'm not against ring filters by any means, but I think matte boxes for me, they do 2 very important jobs. Number 1 is they allow you to filter.
He already has a 77mm ND.
Well, then I would go straight with the filter rings. But the upside about matte boxes, as I was about to say, is that you have number 1, the ability to control light entering the camera when you cannot control your light source, i.e. sunlight, i.e. large fixed lights in shooting areas. B, matte boxes look great, and that sounds like such a terrible thing to say. It's like, oh, that's an aesthetic choice. It means that when you're out filming and you put a matte box on the front, your client, your people who see it going, they see proper work being done, which is such a bizarre thing to say, but most people don't understand cameras the way that you will understand cameras. And their perceived notions of cameras are sometimes very important to say. There has always been a long-running joke amongst freelance professionals that you pay out 500 quid for a matte box and you charge an extra £200 for every job you do, because people suddenly think you've bought a better camera with you, when all you've done is put a matte box on the front. So I think there's a lot to be said for the matte box personally. But like screw-on filters, this incredibly silly expensive lens that Joel has screw-on filter threads on it, even though it's a high-end professional lens. It's not that filters aren't used like that. All of my lenses have screw-on filter threads. Aaron's lenses, screw-on filter threads. The university's lenses, screw-on filter threads. It's the type of thing of like, also, do you want to be spending that much on a pane of glass? When you could be spending much less on smaller.
About 250 to 300 for a 4x4.
There you go. You're hearing £300 for a 4x4 sheet, or you're talking perhaps 150 for the screw-in. Now, most people who are not camera purchasers are now bulking at the prices of a small little round thing to put on the front of the lens, but I will tell you now, if you're looking to get into this industry, you're looking to work with cameras, you're looking to own cameras, it's a heck of an investment, and an investment is how it should be viewed. Any more questions, Jolie?
Not yet, no.
You'll get an in-depth answer, people, and you'll enjoy it. I mean, I can't.
Again, I think that it's so much down to the person's preference as to what they're going to be doing as to which one they should choose.
Yeah.
But of course, that's the thing is, I'm trying to provide options and things that you might not have considered.
That's my conclusion.
That's your conclusion. That's Joel. We've had Joel's conclusion. Now, is there anything else we would like to see? There are things that people might be wondering about. I just think that this is such a beautiful looking camera. You know, it has a level of pizzazz to it that I just don't think other cameras have. They're incapable of rendering. Now here's the thing, we'll show a bit of like direct light, and now with that softening on it, can you see the difference that you're getting there? And I'm doing this, not Aaron at the minute, obviously, because he's not wearing any gloves. So let's go. So we've got two sheets of it here.
Do you have a wide-angle prime lens that we could see?
Wide-angle prime.
28.
We'd have to. Well, there's a
14mm Samyang.
Yeah,
we could see on the C100.
Yeah, pop the 14mm Samyang on the C100.
Oh, it's a shame I didn't bring my other lenses to them.
Any particular thing you want to know about the wide-angle prime? Anything specifically, or or is this just flare chat now? We're all just here to see as much, lens flare as we possibly can on every type of lens, on every type of camera. Quick, Joel, hold up the PL mount lens in front of the C100. Let's see what that looks like. Now that's.
So this isn't the wide yet.
I am enjoying it. So what is that currently sat at?
We're currently on 24mm on a 24 to 70, 2.8.
So that's 24.
2 stops of ND.
So 2 stops of ND. Get that ND off. Let's have a look what this looks like. Ooh.
6 stops. No ND.
Can you see that hexagonal flaring going there? Like I said, this is the C100, guys. This is the camera you guys should all know fairly well. Is that a 14 in there? Yes, it is, isn't it? Of course. How did I forget that? No. So we're going to pop that lens off, and I'm going to do this so we can protect the... just very quickly. Oh yeah, there's a lot of dust flying around here. I'll take that. You give that to him. I'll give you that. Now remember guys, this is the 14mm Samyang, so it's one of the cine lenses we have for the C100. I think one of the most important things to say about it is it's all manual, which is great. I'm gonna come
I'm
around.
interested in buying one of those on my GH4, a super wide angle.
Well, that would work good for the crop anyway.
It'd look good for the crop. The crop would work well on it, so it'd punch in a bit. But the one thing I'd say about all lens choices need to be motivated. Why that one? You know, what are you trying to achieve? It's great for stuff like this. I'm going to pull this back because, you know, the likelihood is this 650 watt light will just melt that DVD case. To be fair, it might melt the Super 8 camera. That's an 80s one. They're made of plastic. Are we sharp? I can't even tell on
Very
this.
hard to...
Fish, isn't it?
That is another thing. You go that wide, you are going to start finding it incredibly hard to find your sharps.
Yeah, that's probably sharps. We can get it. We can get closer. You want to get
Well,
closer?
yeah, we could get in nice and close. The other thing is, if you buy a wide-angle prime, you're going to want something that focuses close. Because if it doesn't focus close, you're not going to be able to do these fun, crazy fisheye type things that we'll see in a second. I mean, look at the pan that goes for when Aaron gets it down to where he wants it to be. This will do a pan in a minute that just looks so bizarre. It's the sort of thing that, you know, other lenses won't do. They don't create that type of weird fishbowl effect. Why we call it fisheye. And look at and here's another thing. Look at that depth it's created across that table. You know. This camera,
This quite nicely.
this is only a hand span apart, but you look at it on there and it looks like it's miles away without something to contextualize it. Oh, we really want to put a bit more light across it because everything is a little bit. Yeah, the bulb has gone. We have been doing this for what must be like 2 hours now.
We're on the 2 hour mark now.
We're on the 2 hour mark.
One.
You know. And we still have a nice screen grab of some anamorphic lens flare back there. Did we leave the reflector in there?
I love the fisheye effect. That's what that's the aim I want with getting the lens. The thing is, you've got to consider with the GH4 is because it's got a micro 4/3 sensor, so it's half of the crop of a full frame.
Yeah.
So
If you are buying a EF mount one, that means that you are not getting 14. You'll be getting closer to 24, which isn't fisheye. You know, you'll have to be buying a specific Micro Four Thirds fisheye, and you'll also have to be looking at it as a. I mean, look at that. Doesn't that look great?
You need the equivalent of a 20 mil.
And I'm going to just bounce a little bit of light up onto here. Oh, try and not be in shot as well. He says getting further into shot, but that's where the light's going.
I'd like some light going back in the Super 8.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to work out how to. God, I can't even find where this is reflecting to. That's because I've got it on the black side. I couldn't see a thing. There we go. Well, I couldn't see. I can't see it. It's all just too blinding by the 650. I can't see where this is headed. So.
Do they cover full frame?
What?
The 14 mil would. I just got. Do they cover full frame? So I'm assuming they're talking about the 14 mil.
The Samyang is not.
I believe the cine lenses are. Let me go grab a full frame. I'm almost confident of it.
Okay.
That's a great question that Joel will now find the answer to. Not with that. It's very difficult to find because, of course, they don't want to talk about them as being too specifically like that. I would like to. I'm just going to point it towards the lens.
Yeah, I want some more. That's better. There we go. Oh,
I need
that's
to move it there.
Yeah.
So you can grab some of those front elements in there. There is a. I don't know if we can put the guides on there. Is the guides? Is it coming out of the?
No.
Oh, we didn't. We haven't taken it out of the thingy, have we?
No, because of the
Mm.
left angle.
Well, we could always. Yeah. Oh, never mind. Never mind. Right. So we've got that there. Joel has taken the questions phone. So if you have questions, we'll get to them when Joel comes back with his answers. Yeah. This isn't melting yet. I don't want to melt my edition of Mist.
Get that mist out of here.
Neither of you know what Mist is, so I'm not even gonna. I think they are full frame, which means that it's not quite a 14 on the
No, it'll be a
24.
Is that,
about 20.
has that got HDMI or mini HDMI?
Yeah, it's because it's the 5D, isn't it?
5D Mark III.
I think that'll be mini.
Well, it's, as long as we could just give them a
Yeah.
concrete answer.
Another lens.
I'm certain.
Yeah, that'll be a
Yeah.
full frame.
Oh. Yeah.
Because I think those Samyangs were made to be cine for the.
We have this mini HDMI. Should I try anyway?
Yeah, try it.
Right. I don't know why the light didn't work.
This is why I like the full frame comparison.
Oh, this is all plugged in over here.
Yeah.
And trapped under there.
Is it?
I'll just unplug it. There you go.
There you go. Freedom.
Not yet. A second.
It's not powered yet.
It's not powered on. Now it's powered on. Let's give it a second.
The screen's gone off.
Let's see. Doesn't like mini HDMI through the
No.
block, does it?
No,
Oh,
no,
oh,
no,
where?
no. There you go.
Oh.
Did you unplug it? Hey, there you go.
There we go.
So that's how wide it is on a full frame, which you can see is beyond.
Yeah, this is a true 14 mil.
You know, that's. You know, like.
That's some peep show stuff, that is.
It's unwieldy, in my opinion. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you.
See on there.
Well, that's nice. There we go.
You know,
Some
but
nice
see,
angles
but
there.
that's where you're starting to get the real worth out of a true 14mm lens. You know, it's giving you this. You know, the sense of scope and scale. You know.
If that person with the GH4 wanted a 14 equivalent on the GH4, you would need a 7mm lens. I'm not sure how common that would be.
You can get 12mm Micro Four Thirds. I can't remember which brand, but you can get 12mm.
You'll probably start losing the fisheye effect at 12mm because that's closer
Yeah,
to
no,
a 24.
exactly. But I don't think it goes lower.
But is it Micro Four Thirds 12 or
yeah,
is
it's
it?
Micro Four Thirds 12.
So it is a
that'll
12-12.
No, it's not.
Or we're going through this again.
We've been through this. No.
No, but
not.
it's a
Yeah.
12 mil for micro four thirds.
Yes, which will look the same as a 24 mil on full frame.
Well, no, because
Yeah.
a 24 for micro four thirds would surely look like a 24 for 35
No.
mil for the
No.
comparison.
We're going to debate this later, students. Ignore Lawrence, because he's wrong.
Joel's never coming back. But
Yes, yes. So we answer Jack's question. They do cover full frame, the Samyangs, especially the 14 mil. And Joe, if you want a fisheye effect, you need somewhere between a 7 and like 10 for your GH4.
there you go. More questions, please. We need more questions. Oh, that's because that's what's going off. I was like, what's
I can
flashing?
get a Samyang 7.5mm fisheye lens for about £200 f3.5. So if you can get that on a micro four thirds, that will give you pretty much the same angle as what you just saw on this 5D, which is insane fisheye.
Yes.
And again, if you want something a little more subtle, like it was on the C100, you're looking at more of a 10 mil. So
And like I said, it honestly depends what you're doing. I think you would struggle to find a lot of uses for anything sub 14, sub 20, to be honest.
Any more of the Samyangs on at all?
We could put more Samyangs on if we want. Pop them on the old C100. But you're getting to the place of 50 and 85 then, and then you're just punching in and out. And I think most people will have hopefully seen these lenses
should we switch back to the red for the time being?
for the time being. I think if we don't have many more questions, we will probably wrap up fairly soon. We don't need this to become an 8-hour session, hopping from camera to camera.
Yeah, we do.
We can do that once we've turned off the stream. I mean, once again, you're starting to see that difference. I mean, look at the difference between that 5D and this. You know, the difference is pronounced by not even a narrow margin. It's huge. And we've still got that still up from the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema. The quality is just, it's difficult to say. But a lot of that is from lighting. If we were to just bring up the house lights in here, they'd all look different, but they'd all start to look a bit boring, to be honest. All of them look boring. You know, this is a lot of work you're putting in with this light. We're angling this across here. We're creating contrast. So if we look on this side, we've got a lot of contrast between here and here because our light source comes across here. We've got the back wall. We're making contrast between those coloured lights in the back wall. You know, we can see this here. You know, do you know what I mean? There's shadow running across it. If we take the camera itself, the body's quite dark, but the lens is pretty well lit. We can see the logo. If we were doing product-related stuff, we might sort of bring something much more forward, pull some of this stuff back, use something to bounce across it. Oh, is that wide open, Jolie?
It is, but we've knocked the aperture down when we were doing the ISO down when we were doing lens flares.
Oh, okay, cool. Bring that up to about 250. Well, it's only bringing that forward if we're doing an example of product stuff.
Sorry. Pop that there.
So if we bring that forward and brought some of these back,
There we go, that's looking nice.
do you want to drop the camera down or at least angle it down and pull it in quite tight on this as if this is the thing we're really pushing?
Colour something a bit more consistent. There you go. Do like that pink.
See, now one of the other things we can do is we can bring this light off to the side, closer to here. Now you looked at that, looks like, can you, yeah, and Aaron will now bounce this light back up onto the camera. You've got me there. Nearly. You can't get a massive amount off of this, so it might have to be a case of pulling this off. Or the other thing as well is this, is once we take that diffusion off,
There we go.
do you know what I mean? I can't even see that because Aaron is now stood in front of it, but you know, you can highlight that back up as well. Remember, you can only reflect hard sources of light, or powerful sources of light if they're soft. But look at that now. And because that's being run on the reflector, we can move that, flare that's across the glass as well. Can you imagine that? If you pull that in a bit tighter for me, Joel, if that's possible. So we're framing up mostly just that camera.
Right.
tilt it down. Nice jaunty angle. It's a little tight at the minute. Yeah. But you mean if we just, can you, a little too tight, can you pull it back for me just so we're within markers and just level it out? It's heavy. It's still on the wonk a little bit.
Got reflection there in the lens.
See, and there we go. If you just sharpen it up, it'll be fine.
There's without.
See, now imagine that's what you're doing. Can we stop that down any further so that, open it out? Just try, I want to create like a real defined background and foreground if we can.
Fully opened up.
Well, that's not too bad. That's pretty spot on. Now, if Aaron runs that light across there, you know, we've got a book falling over.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realise how close that was.
Pretty close. My alarm going off. There you go. So you can see that's the product shot happening there, isn't it? You know, and you can create some interesting looks to it.
Well, we also had another addition from Jack that I didn't realise before. Panasonic make an 8mm lens.
Ooh.
So just finding the use for those kind of lenses.
Yeah. I see what you're getting on about now. I see where you're going with it.
Yeah,
He's coming around.
I am right.
It's funny how we talked about it earlier, and then you go, yeah, it's about 70 and 70, and then later on it's like,
We can literally set up all the cameras in a row.
It's a different thing. I'm talking about something different.
I'm giving it to them in layman's terms.
Yeah.
No more questions though.
yeah.
If we get to the point where we're at no more questions, I think we've illustrated just so much stuff. Just pop in the chat if you're happy, you feel like you've come away with something. Like I said before, I've said this many times before, we do these demonstrations, but if you have questions or anything that comes to you even after this, just give us an email, you know. Aaron and I's emails are available. I mean, I wouldn't ask Joel anything. No, Joel's not here for that. But, you know, Aaron and I are available, you know, and this is very much the type of thing that we specialise in, you know, this type of lighting. I mean, and I hope that some lighting has come away from this. We were going to go a bit more into sort of how to set up something like this, but this is a bit much for 3 people because there's a whole studio to run, and you guys usually do that in groups of 10. And we're presenting and doing the entire studio as a group of 3 and trying to educate you at the same time. Also, very important, do you want to show that just to the red one? Yeah, Aaron, just show that what that is. These are air blowers, great for getting dust off of lenses. If you've got your lens covered in dust, it'll look awful. It'll be one of those things that we looked at. But also, when you pop a lens off the back, you want to be doing the same thing. You want to be getting one of those out and blowing air off the back of it as well. Those are, in a lot of ways, preferable to canned air, before anybody asks the question. And the reason being that canned air is not actually air, it is refrigerant. It's effectively the same thing that you use when you are powering an air conditioner, which is spraying out a lot of content. So if you're not careful and you use that wrong, it will just spray white stuff all over the inside of your lens. The battery is critical, low, shuts down.
Oh.
I've never seen that before.
Shall I let it shut down or should I turn it off?
You can turn it on if you want.
This has lasted like 2 hours.
It has lasted 2 hours. I'm very impressed. If there are no more questions, it may be the end of an educational experience with Joel, Aaron, and I. So let's just see if there's anything else.
I'll let them roll in.
If you're happy, just put, I'm happy. Very educated. Much education.
Still got 12 people watching.
Bless them, is all I can say. It's been a long affair.
Oh, Joe's very happy. Joshua is very happy. Thanks, guys. Jack says he's happy. Yeah, and we just got a bunch of people educated. I'm happy with this, but not in life. That's
Oh, that's my vibe.
yeah, people are happy.
Wonderful. Then
It
I
gets
am.
better.
Sorry?
It gets better.
It gets better.
Life.
All this session, I think this session actually gets worse as it goes along.
Do it again, maybe as well, a little bit more.
You hear that, everybody? Aaron wants to do this again. So next week, we're all back in. Same thing. Same questions, preferably.
Maybe we could do a show with the students in May time
Yeah.
where they operate and we host.
Yeah.
Something like that.
The other thing, guys, we will have later in the year, we do have some ideas for some workshops. So it would be great to get your input as well on what you guys want to learn, what you feel like are technical skills that you don't feel that you've you feel are at your disposal at the minute. Technical things that we can show you. So with that, I'm going to mute this microphone, and you can look at the that's my phone. You can look at the wonderful tones of the red one as we all slowly disappear into nothingness. Ta-ra!